Hey everyone, Daniel Ramsey here with MyOutDesk. I'm super excited. As you know, we're the real estate industry's leading virtual professional company. We help staff growing and scaling real estate companies. And today we have a special guest. I'm really excited because it's a niche upon a niche upon a niche. It's like the highest level of niches. And today we have Laurel Stark and her. I'm trying to read her resume. It's impressive. Awards, designations. But here's the thing. Today, she's going to add value to you and teach you about the divorce niche.
I've just heard tons and tons and tons of great things for years about MyOutDesk. So I've never gotten to meet you personally. So I'm excited that that we get to be acquainted. I mean, everybody in the world in the my real estate world has used MyOutDesk and your services for years. So
yeah, we're 12 years old. We've served 5,000 clients, and it's just insane the kind of good impact that we've had in the world. And so, I mean, and what we focus on, this is crazy cool too, is what we focus on is helping people double their real estate practice, which is why having you on here is so awesome, because we always teach people have a niche. I'm a real estate broker. My niche was investors. Like I was super deep into like, what's your return on investment? You know, what's your cap rate, all that kind of crazy lingo. But I was not a divorce person. I know nothing about this niche. So I'm really excited. Laurel, here's the thing. She wrote a book, Divorcing the House. Is that the book that we're going to talk about today?
The House Matters is what we're going to talk about.
The House Matters. And what's cool about this is it's super complex. There's a lot of legalese, and she's going to dumb it down so a silly real estate broker like me can understand it, and hopefully you can too. So Laurel, let's dive in. How the heck did you get started in this crazy niche?
Yeah. So I got my license 14 years ago in 2005. I had been a flight attendant for a decade. I've still got, I think, the haircut. And so I just didn't want to fly anymore after having 2 little kids. So I got into real estate, and man, I learned real estate is like this vast industry, and it's like, oh my gosh, you can go in so many different directions with it. And there's so much you need to know with it. So I had a friend of ours who was a family law attorney at the time, and he's a judge now. He referred me to a case. He actually called me one day. It was my second listing I ever had taken. He told me that he has gotten me appointed by the court to list and sell this property. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, what even does that mean? You know, I don't understand. And so I went and I met with a client, and she told me this whole entire story. So I've been happily married for 21 years. And
congratulations.
Thank you. My parents have been married for going on 56 years. So I am not a product of divorce. I do not come from a personal divorce myself either. So it was really interesting to me, this whole dynamic that this woman was telling me about her divorce and what these horrible things that her husband had done, et cetera. And so long story short, she needs to sell the house immediately because she needs to get her son into a new school district. Husband absolutely refuses to sell the house. He refuses to do anything, will not talk to me. And I found myself a few weeks later on a witness stand testifying to a judge. I had never even walked in a courtroom before. I mean, I'm shaking my boots. I haven't even gotten a traffic ticket. So it was this whole dynamic, and I'm looking at NAR, and I'm looking on, our state organization. I'm looking at our company everywhere I can for information on how to handle this. Even my broker, who's like that walking encyclopedia type broker, is even stuck with what to do. So there's so many moving parts and so many moving pieces. And I just realized, like, first, this is super interesting. Secondly, there's a huge need. And third, I need to become educated. So I was just drawn to it. And it snowballed from there. I got 1, I got 2, I got 3, and then it went on from there. So that's how I got into it.
And now you are the country's foremost divorce real estate expert. What's crazy too, and what I love about having you on the show is that you've actually founded the Divorce Real Estate Institute. So let's talk about that journey. What was that like to found an entire institute around this niche that you now love and teach and train around the country? And, I'm real estate all over the world, right?
Yeah. So so sort of to understand where I am today, you have to understand where where I've been for 14 years. So as I got into, like I indicated when I first began, there was no education available. The more I got into it, so if you think I got into the business in 2005 and then the market crashed, and I'm in Southern California. I'm at ground zero in the Inland Empire of Southern California for short sales and for, the distressed market. I think Vegas, Phoenix, Detroit, us, we were all right there. Lots in Florida as well. So I kept getting these divorce listings, and they're underwater, and they haven't made payments, and they're subject to foreclosure, and they've got first loans, second loans. They want to do deeds in lieu, like all of these stuff. It got really complicated. So I'm like, well, I need to know. And I learned and understood at a high level our foreclosure and all of our like deficiency judgment, all of that kind of mumbo jumbo. And I realized the more I got into it, I realized family law attorneys don't know this stuff at a high level, and they are advising their clients to do things that are just flat out not right. And it doesn't come from a place of being, trying to harm anybody. It's just, they simply don't know. They don't live and breathe the real estate world like we do. They've got lots and lots of stuff they need to know and understand as divorce attorneys, custody and business valuations and domestic violence, you name it. They've got their whole world. But what they don't do is live and breathe real estate. So I realized back then that I was gaining a skill set and a knowledge that I needed to share it with them. And I needed to educate the family law community on, on all of these things. And that has just never stopped. I mean, that was our market then. And, now our market now has changed, and they still need a lot of education. So, I mean, right now it's, hero loans, PACE loans, solar liens, all of that stuff's plaguing our business right now, right? Like, what even is this? They're putting huge snafus into our transactions. So I've just done some education to them on that. Anyway, as I have built my journey, I've known and I've recognized that there is an entire skill set that realtors have, and there is a lot of knowledge and tools that we also have that the family law community needs to make lawyers better lawyers, to help streamline processes so that courts are not as clogged with issues that can be put out by a knowledgeable realtor being on a case, and ultimately so that divorcing homeowners are set up for the best success possible. We're not going to make their pain go away, but what we can do is help to mitigate the damage that's being done by the colossal event of a divorce. And so I knew if my community needed this, like what I've been able to provide, I knew that there were communities all over the nation that needed it. So I always knew at some point I'd get to the place where I could package what all I've learned and turn around and teach it to our industry, because our industry needs it, and so does the family law industry. So that's what the Divorce Real Estate Institute is all about.
It's all about.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, but if for the audience, because everybody is going to get a copy of this video, everybody, why would I choose divorce as a niche? Talk me into it. Like, help me understand, what is the opportunity? What can I expect? What's the work around doing it? Like, tell me why divorce is where it's at.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think people need to really ask themselves that, because it is certainly not for everybody at all. And so just like everybody shouldn't be parents, everybody shouldn't do this. So it is, there are definitely pros and cons to this. So what I will tell you, the ugly part first, is that it's messy. These are very complex listings. Uh,
Yes.
they are under the jurisdiction of the court. There are emotions that we need to know and we need to manage. It's a lot of drama and drama management.
You're a therapist, a
Yeah.
realtor, and part attorney slash part what?
Yeah, legal experts. So in the legal world, they depend on experts, and their term expert, I just want to throw it out, like their term expert is not, our term. We use it as a marketing term. They use it as a legal term. So
Ah,
so the legal community depends on experts.
right.
So it's really about being a legal expert to them. We're not attorneys. I'm not an attorney, never went to law school. But it's really it's really understanding that when you get into these cases, they're complicated. They take a lot of hard work. It's not, this necessarily this, it's not a happy time for them. So this isn't about, that euphoric moment when you get to deliver keys to,
Yeah.
a first time home buyer, and
Right.
it's just, you get their picture on social media. This isn't that. So
Right.
it really takes someone who is drawn to complex issues, who's good at problem solving, who's good at working through a big huge puzzle, and you're kind of drawn to. I guess it's the difference between somebody who just wants to go to the gym every day versus somebody who wants to run the Ironman, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know why anybody would ever want to run the Ironman,
Me
but there
neither.
are people that do. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
so this is for the marathon runners. This is for the Ironman, people, because that's what it really is. It's about people who want to push past their limits. Um, so there's that. In terms of a business model, it is, we as realtors are always trying to look for things, how can we set ourselves apart? How can we be any different? And rather than being one of 40 phone calls that an expired listing gets, and it being like this, massive numbers game. What I did is I sort of took it and I inverted that. So in other words, if you have a farm or you have a database or something like that, and you're looking to market to 1,000 people so that you can get maybe 15 deals out of 1,000 people a year, whatever the numbers are, it's really marketing to a small group. It's marketing to 50 people or 100 attorneys that each have the capability of giving you multiple transactions in a year.
Right. Well,
So,
let's talk about like how you do that, because I think another thing I want everybody to know is Laurel's giving some stuff away, which I'm really excited about. You've got a marketing plan that you're going to give away, as well as an intake form. So when a lead comes in that is a divorce scenario, you can kind of organize who they are and what their time frame is. So I'm excited about that. But so your niche allows you to just have a smaller database with divorce attorneys, basically.
yeah, and it really is something that it's going to it transcends market fluctuations. When the market's down, or when we're in a distressed market, people, have to sell because they can't afford to, they're not in a position to buy. Right now we have a problem, or divorcing homeowners have an issue because there's so much equity. We've recovered. But for a party who wants to keep the house, there's almost too much equity for them to be able to buy out the other spouse.
Yeah.
So it really tends to be a bit of a steady current in and amongst, our fluctuations and waves in the industry. So from a business model standpoint, I can tell you I experienced that firsthand, that my business has not taken dips based on market fluctuations. So there's that, and it just becomes, when we get on a case, I get court appointed on it. So the parties are ordered by the court to list the property with me. So it takes out a lot of, like competition, you're competing for listings and all of that sort of thing. So the motivation is very high. As a result, I close, 99% of the listings I take. So,
and probably for a full fee, 6% or a higher. You're never having that commission conversation. Like, what have you done for me lately? You're providing a court appointed required service to a seller.
yeah, I mean, personally, I do not inflate my fees, but I also don't discount my fees. So, you're hiring a specialist. And so we all know what that means, right? You go to, a cardiologist is going to cost more than a general practitioner. So it's the same type of thing. But like I said, I don't charge a premium. I charge my full amount and I don't discount. And that's helpful.
What, just so the audience has an idea, if somebody wanted to launch this niche, what could they expect in a normal, major market? There's about 100 across the country that have a decent size, like 500,000 to 1 million folks in their market. What is a normal, let's say I'm not doing divorce right now. I hire you and we do some work together, and 6 months later, I've got this practice, this little niche. I create a website. Now I've got all of my branding together. What would I expect in terms of a normal, business flow every month? 3 to 5 listings, 10 listings? Like what would I normally expect?
Yeah, I mean, so, I always say that you get out of it, obviously, what you put into it, right?
Yep.
This is marathon, this is marathon business building. So this isn't, you get quick internet leads. Even internet leads have an incubation of 6 to 9 months, I believe, something like that.
Yes.
I mean, that's even
Yes.
internet leads. So we're talking about building very strong relationships in a legal community that takes a while to break into, but the long-term effects are they continue to reward. I just went on a vacation. I was gone for 2 weeks. I came back to 5 new listings last week. So it's and I haven't really done much marketing. I mean, but I've been around for a really long time. So our students, what we're finding is that our students tend to, within the first year, they're getting somewhere in the neighborhood of between 3 and 5 listings, and then it just compounds every single year. So this is definitely sort of, long-term 401k investing, mutual fund investing, right? Where you make your business and you get the rewards over a long-term compound effect.
It's interesting. Since Amazon just today, like literally today,
I saw that.
Yeah, announced that, they're entering in the real estate world with Realogy. I think the other thing to point out that's really important about this particular niche is, it can't get disrupted. Like, this is not going to go away. Now, a standard transaction where there's happy buyers and sellers, that could change, maybe have margin compression, commissions might go down, a robot might be on the other side, like Redfin, so there's a lot of, friction that these companies are disrupting that just simply can't get disrupted in this particular niche. That's your perspective too, right?
100%. In fact, it's even a step further than that. And I would say this is an opportunity to be a disruptor.
Okay.
So, we as the real estate community, we need to take hold and really disrupt what's been going on in family law for all these years. And that's what I've done in my industry. My community here, my family law community, behaves very differently in the way that they approach and handle the sale of the house than they do in most other communities nationwide. And I know that because I train and teach realtors all over the country, and I mentor realtors all over the country, and I know exactly what's going on throughout the country and how divorce attorneys and courts are handling the sale of the house. How they used to do it in my community until I came in and educated them and taught them that there's a better way. So Yeah.
Go ahead.
I disrupted my own community.
That's a really interesting point. How do you connect with attorneys? Like as a realtor, like honestly, I used to try to avoid attorneys. So I'm just going to be clear. Like
Yep.
when a buyer registered on my website, you know, back in the day, big shout out to Boomtown. They were my CRM of
Mine
choice, right?
too. Big
Yeah, that Greer sold me
love
properly back in the day. When an attorney jumped on my website, I just kind of said, "Oh, thank you very much, but we don't serve your kind."
it.
How do you build relationships in that particular niche with
Yeah.
attorneys as a realtor and do it effectively to drive revenue? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
So
a
you,
big deal.
yeah. So you sort of have to be, the guy that sort of runs into the fire rather than running out of it. But you have to kind of embrace
Yep.
that instead of run away from it. And I think the biggest thing for us realtors to know is that lawyers are not, and they'll be the first to tell you as soon as you can, sometimes get that ego to come down a little bit, but they'll be the first to tell you they are not that know all end all be all. They don't understand the guts of a real estate transaction. There's no possible way that they can understand real estate at the level that we do.
Right.
So it's not to be intimidated by that. It's really to own and appreciate and understand what we have to offer them. And so when you realize, what we as realtors, know and what they need from us, that becomes very empowering. And then it sort of takes the fear down. It sort of takes those barriers down, because then it's like, well, we can walk in, because you know what? We are the experts. They're not. We are. So I think it's number one, overcoming that. But the second thing I'd say is that building relationships with attorneys, it is a very different approach than building relationships with your neighbor or a farm or an online
Or consumer, a
or a consumer.
consumer. Right.
Yeah. Lawyers, they are academics first and foremost. They hold themselves and anybody around them to a high standard. You're walking into a world of highly educated people. Judges are highly educated, lawyers, as well as they're used to working with forensic accountants who are highly educated, with psychologists, forensic psychologists who are highly educated. So, and they place a value on higher education.
Yes.
So they expect that everyone that they surround themselves with is an expert. So I really try to stress to people who are getting into this. There are two questions I get asked. It is, how do I lead generate? That's 80 to 90% of the number one question. How do I lead generate? And the second one is, how do I handle the drama? What do I do with a listing when I get it?
Right.
And I would say that we need to kind of flip that. We need to do our research, do our homework, educate ourselves before we go out there and lead generate, because they're going to smell a lead generate. This isn't just like master your scripts, pound the phone.
Mm-hmm.
This is about really understanding what you're doing and then going out and doing it. That's what they did. They didn't hang a shingle and then get a case, walk through the door, and then figure out what they were going to do with that case. Right.
Right.
They got a law degree. They went to school for 7 years and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars before they ever hung a shingle. So, so that's really the first thing. The first step is know what you're doing, know what you're getting into.
I love it. I was listening to another podcast because I'm a nut with podcasts, right?
Yeah.
There was this quote and I loved it, so I want to share it because I think it's applicable to your world. Dissatisfaction erupts when reality and expectations are not aligned. Like the reality of the world and your expectation, when they're not aligned, dissatisfaction. And I think that would probably be the challenge in your niche, which would be setting proper expectations, not only for the attorneys, but for your sellers, and negotiating the emotional impact of, my whole life is changing now. And there's nothing more devastating than having your children be split and selling all of your assets and get, like that. I can't imagine.
Can't imagine it. Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's, and there's, there are studies that even just, what it does emotionally and mentally to the mind, even temporarily in that time is very devastating. So it's knowing how to reconcile and how to work with these personalities that are going through something that's not their normal, and they're not behaving normally. They always say that in family law, people show up at their worst, and in criminal law, they show up as their best.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
yeah. So it really, it really is knowing that. And, and that begins from step one. So when we get when my office, when we get a phone call that, I've been brought into a case, or I've been referred to a case, or whatever, I mean, that very first conversation is different than in a traditional listing.
I think we nailed it. What's interesting about this interaction is you don't have to sell. That's what I'm like. You're not even in the space where you're trying to convince me that you're the person. No time frame, no highest in dollar. Like when I'm calling for a listing, I'm like, look, I'm going to net you the most money. We're going to sell it fast. I'm the person. I'm the expert in the world. But you had to do none of that in that interaction. Why is that? Like what? Especially if you're not on the order.
So. And your answer is correct, by the way. There's usually 3 calls I get. So either I am appointed by the court, I am the court's expert. I'm appointed under a certain evidence code.
Right.
The second one is the order says the parties need to sell their house, and the parties are ordered to list with Laurel Starks. That just says that they're ordered to use me. That's it. And then the third one is just like what you said. The house has to be sold, but there's no agents in the order.
And that's probably when both parties agree to actually do the deed of selling the house, correct?
Yeah. So in the scenario with you, which I would say is probably about 20% of the calls that I get,
Okay.
in the scenario with you, I don't know, based on what you and I just said, if you guys have agreed to use me or not.
Right.
I don't know. You just called up and said that I was referred by your attorney.
Yeah.
I am going to proceed under the assumption that I'm agreed to. And so I'm just going to proceed until I'm told otherwise, that I'm not, that you guys are maybe interviewing or something like that. But most of the time, by the time we kind of get down the road, if you guys are, I've already gotten it. The other thing that I would do that's a little bit different is assuming that I am the one that you guys choose. I actually send out something called a stipulation that with my attorney, we created a long time ago. And it is something that does make me appointed by the court. So I'll say, at some point, like we would get to the point where I would say, okay, well, I am going to send out a stipulation for it to be circulated through counsel so that I can be appointed under 730. And there's all kinds of reasons we won't get into about that.
And that's because you don't want, even though everybody agrees to you now, a listing document or a listing contract is not, like they can cancel that at any time, versus a court order, a stipulation that is signed by both parties, that requires them to go to court to get it overturned. And that's why you want it.
So no, that's one reason. I would say that the other big reason too is that when we as agents, when we have a listing agreement, our agreement begins and ends with the parties. That's it. It just begins and ends with them. So then fast forward, I have husband tells me I want to accept the offer, and wife tells me I don't want to accept the offer.
Right.
As a listing agent, my duty begins and ends with these two.
Right.
I'm stuck.
Right.
If I am ordered by the court, if I'm appointed by the court, I actually have a duty at that point to communicate with counsel. And if we still can't do it, if counsel cannot make an agreement, then we need to go to court. I need to write a report. I need to testify to the court.
Right.
So it brings me in and makes me part of the case. Does that make sense?
It does. And I guess my question would be then, do you then get a court appointed appraisal so that if you have an offer for above appraised price, it just automatically gets accepted and you move down the road? I mean, I would set it up like that if I could.
Well, automatically gets accepted means that we still have to have everything executed, right? We still have to have everything signed. So sometimes what can happen is if the court ultimately has the power to evict someone out of the house. So you, Daniel, you're living in the house.
Right.
You start to sabotage the sale and you start to go against court orders. The court actually has the ability to remove you from the list, from the house completely, and turn over the possession to Ms. Ramsey.
Yeah.
They also have the ability to sign all of the documents on your behalf. So the court can literally kind of take you and just kind of plunk you over there. But there's a process to getting that done. It doesn't just happen, you know?
Right. And it's probably a long process. Real quick, does this niche have significantly longer what I call a cash conversion cycle, like from lead to close? Is that a longer process than a standard consumer driven deal?
Yeah, I would say it does. Overall, if you're looking at overall, does it?
Right.
Yes, I would say that it does, because a lot of times we're working on trying to get cooperation and working through a lot of conflicts throughout the process. So I would say it definitely does. What I try and do is, and this is what I teach, is to resolve as many conflicts as possible up front before we ever go on the market. So
manage the expectations.
Yeah, exactly. Because the last thing we want to do is get a buyer in the loop, and now they've got a contractual obligation to a buyer. So now their legal obligations have just gone up.
Increased, yeah.
And then we still have all these these conflicts that could have been potentially put out in the beginning. So I try to get as much of that done as possible.
I'm guessing in the Divorce Real Estate Institute, you also provide disclosures for buyers who would be buyers to make sure they're aware that this is a divorce and that you're acting in an official capacity for the court and that the transaction may take longer. I'm guessing there's a ton of kind of paperwork that you have to disclose to the other party.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope, because I also don't want to, for privacy. Yeah, number one, I don't want to. My job is to get them the highest net proceeds for the house.
Right.
So I don't want to create hurdles that I don't even necessarily know we're going to have. I don't want to create those hurdles for buyers and turn people away so that we can't procure the highest and best offer. So I don't disclose in the beginning for that. The second thing is that it's also privacy concerns, right? So they don't want their neighbors to all know. They don't want the community to know. It's not my place to disclose for them. When I do disclose, it becomes when we start to get into some real issues and we have to go into court. At that point, I need to disclose it to the buyers because they need to understand that there is this process. And
you have a fiduciary responsibility to even the buyers, even if you're not representing them. Okay, quick question. Back to the model, because we only have about 5-10 more minutes left. And so then we're definitely, if you're listening and you want, in this post at the bottom, there's a little thing where you can download your marketing plan and the intake form. And we did a little role play, which was super fun. And if you register with us, Laurel has agreed to give away for the first 5 people a copy of her book. So let's talk about the book real quick and what you put into it. I just finished a book. I put my heart and soul into it. I'm sure you did the same on yours. So let's tell the audience what they get if they decide to register and actually learn more about this particular niche.
So The House Matters in Divorce is a book that I wrote for the consumer. I wrote it basically to divorcing homeowners so that they can be, again, better served. What I found is that realtors are the #1 purchaser of the book. Second to that is family law attorneys, and then the consumers. So if you as a realtor read it, you're going to read it through the lens of what a consumer.
That's
which
right.
is very enlightening. So it's, you know, even though it may not be written to you as a realtor, it is, you will be able to see through the eyes of consumers what they're facing and the things that we as realtors need to ultimately understand. So the book is also a very good gift to attorneys. So a lot of our experts that are with our organization, as well as myself, have given it out as an item of value to family law attorneys. And I've had judges who have continuously come to me and said that they found a lot of value in it. So it's
That's
good
awesome.
stuff for them too. It's a great lead gen piece, but it's also a very good content piece.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think if somebody, now that I know you, Laurel, now that we're fast friends, if I ever was helping somebody with a divorce, I would just send them a copy of the book,
Yeah.
because like the best thing you can do is align expectations with reality. I think that's an amazing gift for somebody who's going through it, and giving them the information in the most stressful time of their life. That could be a lifesaver. So I think that's a brilliant idea. Um, Real quick, how does this niche work with a regular consumer focused model? And then do you stay in touch? What if you have a warring party? Do you add them to your database and then continue to try to help them buy their next house and kind of serve them? I'm kind of curious about how you approach your overall business, because this is a niche, but it's not all of your business. And I'm kind of curious how that all works together and how somebody might combine their existing business with this niche.
Yeah, so good question. So it actually is all my business.
Okay.
I did last year, I did 100% of my listing or my deals. I didn't work anybody. 100% of them were divorce. This
Sweet.
year, I think I've got 2 that are non-divorce, but they're just past client referrals. Um, so it is all I do. In terms of working with the divorcing client after, that can be a little bit of a slippery slope. So I am very aware that sort of the hand that feeds me are the attorneys. And so I ensure that I maintain neutrality and that I maintain my expertise there. Being court ordered to use somebody isn't what everybody wants necessarily. So they've got a friend, they've got a family member, they've got somebody else who either they wish could sell the house or is going to help them buy later on. So I do not tend to go after that. It's not uncommon that they try to bury the hatchet, and I'm part of that hatchet, right? You know, we all have times in our lives where we became attached to a certain person, and then later on you see that person on a caller ID call, and it's like, oh gosh, it's painful. And so it's sort of, you know, I think almost the same way, even though they have a good experience usually with us, I think that they equate me as their divorce realtor. So so I typically do not, that's not a piece that I go after. Can you? Sure. But it's not something that I tend to do. How does a realtor fold this leg into an existing business?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. And I would say that it comes down to time and time blocking and leverage. So the leverage piece, you've got that part handled, right? And it really depends on whether or not an agent has got, you know, closes an average of 5 to 10 transactions, or if they've got a full-fledged, you know, they're doing 100 transactions a year. If it's the former, then you know, it's really about time blocking. I took a lot of the Buffini method because I took Buffini when I first was licensed, and I took that and applied it to real estate. So when you hear about the divorce attorney marketing plan that you guys are hopefully going to all download, then you will see that it is sort of, you know, a referral based lead gen model that is tailored to family law. And there are bits and pieces throughout all of that that you can incorporate leverage.
I just thought, and then this is funny. It's like by court referral only. Like court is in
Yeah.
brackets, you know.
Yeah.
I love the Buffini model. I think it's really great.
Yeah.
Okay, so Laurel, thank you so much for your time. This has been really I had no idea this thing even existed. I knew people did it, but not the way you're doing it. So this has been super awesome. Thanks so much. What would you leave our audience with? If and you said it best, if you need talent, jump on our website, myoutdesk.com,
Totally.
schedule a consultation. We call it the Double My Business consultation. So anybody who needs talent, needs to scale their business. That's what we do. That's how we help folks. But in this niche, Laurel, what would we leave our audience with? What's the one thing you'd like to share, as we wrap up?
Yeah, the one thing that I would say is just not to be afraid to educate yourself, to go after it, to know that there's a need on the other side. While you and I have been sitting here down at my local courthouse, there have been cases that houses just got ordered to be sold. I'm sure of it.
Yep.
And it's happening, it's happening right now. And we as realtors need to step up and really serve our community so that our name can be in those orders.
Okay, so if you want to go deeper with Laurel, what I love and the reason we kind of time this, actually, I mean, this is just like perfect timing. August 6th, you're doing an online education platform kind of training for this particular niche. Let's talk a little bit about that. And in October 6th, you're doing a live in-person 25-person mastermind kind of training that lasts like 6 months. So
Yeah.
If you want to go deeper with you, Laurel, how would somebody do that and get registered for either one of these training opportunities?
Yeah, so it's twofold. Just like you said, so we have two programs. One is for those who are really looking to gain proficiency, and the other one is really for those who are looking to gain expertise.
Got it.
So
Let's break those down because people don't know the difference between those two things.
Yeah.
What's expertise and what's proficiency? Like let's just so the audience knows.
Yeah, so proficiency is going to be basically, if you get a divorce listing, you're going to be better at handling it. There are some fatal mistakes that are very common for realtors to take and make, and you're going to be able to close them better, have a higher ratio for listings to close. And you're also going to be in a position to be able to speak effectively with lead generation.
Got it.
So that's proficiency. And in terms of expertise, that is where we teach and train realtors to truly become the expert, the court-appointed expert in their community. We put our name behind you. We then, you become a CDRE, Certified Divorce Real Estate Expert. You become part of our whole world. We've got an entire faculty of family law attorneys and mediators that we work with you in supporting you to build your business, as well as to really be on the forefront of change in your own community. So that is expertise. It's really understanding at a very, very deep level on the challenges and how to overcome them and become, like I said, just the expert in your community.
So how does somebody get a hold of you to explore either of those options? Because I feel like it's a two-step thing. I would actually just do the August thing and then get the expertise and understand it, right?
Yeah.
And then the actual experience, I could make the decision if I wanted to go and then get proficiency, which I think that'd be a great thing for everybody, right?
Yeah. So if you go to thedivorceniche.com,
website.
That's where you can register for our 8 weeks to success. 8 weeks
Perfect.
to success that's what starts August 6th. It is once a week for 8 weeks. It's you and me going over an entire curriculum on how to become really proficient in divorce real estate. So it's $299 a month for 2 months. and it starts August 6th. So if you go to thedivorceniche.com, you can do that. And then from there, if you think that it's a fit, if it feels right, then we can talk more about the certification program.
And there you have it. Laurel Starks, the Divorce Real Estate Institute. Thank you for your time today. I personally have learned a lot, and I hope you guys have too. And visit us at MyOutDesk if you need high caliber talent today. We'll help you scale your business. Laurel, thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. And I will definitely say that the ability to succeed when you already have a business going is through leverage. So this is a 1-2 punch here for you. So awesome.
Boom. Boom. A new niche and more leverage. I love it. All right. Have a great day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on. Take care. Bye-bye.